On Friday, August 29, 2025, a federal appeals court declared that most of Trump's sweeping tariffs, enacted under emergency powers, were illegal, striking at the core of his trade agenda. Though still in effect until October 14th, this ruling sets the stage for a major legal battle. Let's unpack what happened and why it matters. In early 2025, Trump unleashed a flurry of tariffs via executive orders, dubbed Liberation Day tariffs, slapping a 10% baseline on imports from nearly all trading partners and reciprocal levies up to 50% on countries with high trade deficits. He invoked the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, justifying the move on the basis of trade imbalances and even drug trafficking. That sparked legal pushback. In May, the U.S. Court of International Trade, CIT, ruled those tariffs exceeded the president's power under IEEPA. Citing cases like VOS Selections versus United States, the court said the law doesn't authorize such sweeping tax authority. Tariffs are a distinct congressional power. On August 29th, a 7-4 majority of the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the CIT's decision. Judges emphasized that IEEPA doesn't mention tariffs, nor give the president inherent power to tax or impose duties. Such powers rest with Congress alone. The court called Trump's tariffs unbounded in scope, amount, and duration, reinforcing that emergency law doesn't authorize sweeping trade policy shifts. Importantly, the court paused enforcement of its ruling until October 14th, giving the Trump administration a window to appeal to the Supreme Court. Unsurprisingly, Trump denounced the ruling as made by a highly partisan court and warned it would destroy the country, while pledging to drag the case to the Supreme Court. Legal experts argue the verdict is a monumental check on executive power and a reaffirmation of congressional trade authority. Economists warn of market volatility and strain on global negotiations, with U.S. businesses facing uncertainty and consumers still caught in tariff-driven price hikes. The U.S. Treasury may even have to refund billions. Tariff revenue was already double what it was a year earlier. So, what's next in this high-stakes legal showdown? First, the Trump administration is set to appeal the Federal Circuit's 7-4 ruling, charging that the court exceeded its authority to the U.S. Supreme Court, where a consolidated conservative majority stands poised to decide the scope of presidential trade powers. The court's stay remains in place until October 14th, granting time to file that appeal. From the White House, Attorney General Pam Bondi has denounced the ruling and confirmed the appeal, while a spokesperson insisted the tariffs were lawfully enacted and expressed confidence in a favorable outcome. On social media, President Trump blasted the decision, calling it a total disaster for the country, yet reiterated his belief in eventual vindication via the Supreme Court. Legal analysts expect a Plan B, a pivot to alternative statutes to preserve tariff authority. Potential fallback tools include Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which allows tariffs of up to 15% for 150 days, or Section 301, targeting unfair trade practices through the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. Meanwhile, the case is returning to lower courts to resolve whether refunds are owed to all importers or only those who actively sued. Legal experts warn that the Treasury, already collecting $159 billion in tariff revenue, more than twice last year's level, could face a financial reckoning if refunds become widespread. High-level voices are chiming in too. Jake Colvin, head of the National Foreign Trade Council, called the ruling a wake-up call for Congress to reclaim its constitutional mandate, while Senator Ron Wyden pledged to force votes on repealing these harmful, regressive taxes. More broadly, this ruling marks a constitutional flashpoint, a moment when courts reaffirm that sweeping economic measures must originate in Congress, not the Oval Office. As legal scholar William Reinsch has noted, the administration had been anticipating this and is clearly preparing a legal workaround. For the World Brief audience, this isn't just about tariffs. It's about the future of executive power, democratic accountability, and global economic stability. We'll be tracking this through the Supreme Court, unpacking fallback strategies, and exploring what's at stake for American governance and markets worldwide.